3:11 Eastern Time, October 20th, 2025. The help desk chat at a Midwestern hospital turns into a wall of red. Farm orders don't resolve. Identity checks hang. A night shift admin named Maria hits F5 and watches the spinner skate in place. In Virginia, a network engineer tabs through dashboards whose graphs all kink downward at the same minute. He pings a familiar internal hostname. It returns next domain. On the other side of the sky, a barely known interstellar object, Provisional 3I/Atlas, drifts toward the solar disk from Earth's point of view. Its brightness has been fickle for weeks. Its speed weirder. Senior observers swear its residuals won't fit a clean ballistic solution. Non-gravitational, someone writes and an argument ignites. 2 minutes later, down detector spikes. Then the first #AWS hashtag trends. 12 hours later, the last ground-based frames of 3I/Atlas are uploaded by amateurs before the object disappears into solar conjunction. 2 vanishing acts in 1 quiet week. Data center signal and cometary light invite the same improper question. Are they related? The better question is harsher. Why did we lose both vantage points at once, the cloud we built and the sky we watch? In apartments, ERs, warehouses, and control rooms, ordinary people discover how much of their morning assumes one particular region of one company's cloud will simply be there. In observatories and Slack channels, scientists discover how quickly an object can fall silent when the sun moves between it and us. An hours-long incident in AWS US East 1 region on October 20th disrupted DNS, authentication, and database services while, within a day, 3I/Atlas slid behind the sun and out of view. This part 1 lays out the knowns, what 3I/Atlas is, why its speed variations matter, how the cloud actually fails, and how 2 unrelated blind spots ripen conspiracy and distrust. We map the actors, the timelines, the data blocks, and the first plausible scenarios. 3I/Atlas is the third confirmed interstellar visitor after 1I/Oumuamua, 2017, and 2I/Borisov, 2019. Like those, its orbit is hyperbolic. Eccentricity greater than 1, inbound velocity too high to have formed with the solar system. But early photometry from July through October 2025 carried riddles. Residuals, the differences between predicted and measured positions, drifted consistently enough that modelers added non-gravitational terms. That phrase is jargon, not poetry. It means forces other than gravity are shaping the path. For comets, the usual culprit is outgassing, jets of sublimating ices pushing like faint thrusters. For Oumuamua, some argued for radiation pressure acting on an unusually thin object. With 3I/Atlas, the pattern looked neither purely cometary nor purely solar sail-like. Observers also noted something grander and more unsettling on a cosmological scale. Its inbound vector, reconstructed from early arcs and refined with spectroscopic constraints on radial velocity, appeared to come from high galactic latitude, potentially from the Milky Way's outer halo, or even intergalactic space crossing into the halo before falling toward the plane. Put grossly, if the Milky Way were a city, 3I/Atlas arrived along an empty highway from the suburbs, then almost grazed the ring road before we saw it. Almost flew into our galaxy, one popularizer said, imprecisely but evocatively. Astronomers winced at the phrasing but kept looking. The terms. Solar conjunction is geometry. When a target lies so close to the sun's line of sight that ground-based telescopes are effectively blind. For days or weeks, the object is unobservable in optical wavelengths from Earth. Polarimetry measures the polarization of light scattered by dust or gas. The inversion angle, the phase angle where polarization sign flips, tells you about particle properties. Cometary dust typically produces curves with characteristic inversion angles. Outliers suggest unusual grain composition or structure. Technosignature is a loaded word. Any observable sign that can point to technological activity. Unusual radio spectra, unnatural light curves, synchronized pulses. Scientists use it cautiously. The public rarely does. JWST spectra. The James Webb Space Telescope can extract infrared spectra of faint objects, reporting the fingerprints of molecules like CO2 and H2O. Ratios like CO2, H2O matter. They hint at composition, temperature, and potential activity. AWS East 1 is not a single building but a cluster of availability zones and services spread across Northern Virginia. It's the region many startups choose by default. It's where old architectures put their master auth tables and where DNS resolvers feed internal names. DNS, domain name system, turns human-readable names into IP addresses. If its resolvers or caches go weird, everything that depends on them returns unknown host. DynamoDB is a managed NoSQL database, fast, global, often a single point of failure if your team never built a fallback. If authentication fails, e.g., IAM or custom auth backends time out, your app might be fine, but users can't prove they are who they say they are. Under the ocean, cables like AE1 and CIV/WACS braid continents together. When one goes down, traffic detours. Latency grows. Sometimes the detour coincides with a separate cloud issue and the world invents a pattern. Alternative media ecosystems thrive on overlapping outages. Live streamers translate raw logs into myth. Meme makers compress analysis into suspicion. Hashtags like #AlienProbe taxonomize anxiety. Meanwhile, professionals say the same boring thing. Correlation is not causation. Blind windows are real. Verify. Timeline. July 1st, 2025. Atlas survey pipeline flags an unusually fast, faint object with hyperbolic elements. Provisional 3i/Atlas assigned. July 15th, 2025. Follow-up astrometry suggests non-gravitational residuals at the 3.5 sigma level. First private notes mention variable acceleration. September 19th, 2025, 4:12 Universal Time Coordinated. IceCube logs a high-energy neutrino, event 2550919A, directionally consistent with a broad sky region encompassing 3i/Atlas's path, flagged for later coincidence testing. September 30th, 2025, JWST captures low S/N spectra indicating CO2 emission atypically strong relative to H2O. October 12th, 2025, ground-based polarimetry campaigns begin. Early curves hint at an inversion angle near 17 degrees, outside common comet bands. October 20th, 2025, 3:11 Eastern Time. AWS East 1 incident starts. DNS anomalies, authentication latency, DynamoDB timeouts. Incident response engaged. October 20th, 2025, 6:45 Eastern Time. Widespread user reports. Pharmacy, HR, ride-hail, media services degraded. Down detector charts peak. October 20th, 2025, 10:52 Eastern Time. AWS status pages report elevated error rates resolving. Cached creds partially restore access. Long tail persists. October 21st, 2025, 8 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. 3i/Atlas enters solar conjunction from Earth. Optical loss of contact expected for 10 to 14 days depending on elongation. October 22nd, 2025. IAA issues a cautious press line on polarimetry anomalies. Tabloids publish claims of metallic lines. October 23rd, 2025. Independent amateurs post last preconjunction photometry. Light curve shows short timescale variability. Data blocks, preliminary. Spectrum. JWST, September 30th, 2025. CO2. H2O is almost equal to 8:1 plus or minus 1 after instrument LSF correction. Telluric residuals minimal in the window used, meaning CO2-rich activity at unusual ratio could imply devolatilized water layer, subsurface CO2 pockets, or non-cometary sublimation dynamics. Alt view, low S/N can bias ratios. Revisit calibration. Polarimetry, ground, 2025101220. Inversion angle is almost equal to 17 degrees with shallow slope. Meaning, dust grain properties differ from typical solar system comets, perhaps compact, higher metal fraction, or unusual fractal aggregates. Alt view, phase coverage incomplete, model dependent. Lines, unverified. October 22nd, 2025. Claims of anti-alloy emission lines in the near IR. Meaning, if real would be extraordinary, could suggest meteoritic vaporization or engineered alloy. Alt view, Most likely MIS-ID of blended molecular bands. Requires lab crossmatch and independent replication. Log AWS October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 11 minutes and 7 seconds Z. AWS US E1DNS. ERR next domain 98%. Auth latency 1 minute and 42 seconds. DynamoDB timeout 504, meaning DNS failures cascaded into auth and database request storms, typical of control plane issues. AltView pattern also compatible with targeted DNS poisoning, though no public IOC yet. IceCube September 19, 2025, event 25509119A, energy 290 TeV, direction RA 150 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees, dec plus 40 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees, meaning a single neutrino is not a smoking gun. Directional match to 3I/Atlas path is broad and possibly coincidental. AltView track for future correlation if a burst appears at reacquisition. Tweet October 20th, 2025, 4:05 Eastern Time. At Astro_Watch, 3I/Atlas behind Sun. Blind zone starts. Meanwhile, at AWS is down. Coincidence? Hashtag 3iAtlas hashtag alien probe. Press AIAA October 22nd, 2025. Current polarimetric datasets show anomalies requiring further verification. We request colleagues follow publication protocol. Preliminary ratios from JWST are under internal review. We don't see a mechanism linking a cloud control plane incident to a dust-rich object at $1, says Dr. Elena Soto, polarimetry lead at a European institute. Her group's inversion angle curve is the one everyone screenshotted. She concedes the curve is odd, but odd does not equal engineered. We are missing phase angles during conjunction. That's it. Missing angles. She's precise to the point of dryness. Her inbox is anything but. We built prod to assume us East 1, says Lance Morgan, staff SRE at a payments company. Auth fell over when DNS flapped. We had a design review in 2021 that said, "We'll fix it later." Later never came. His tone has the practiced weariness of someone who has explained the same thing to 3 CEOs in 2 days. The acceleration residuals are real, argues Professor Rakesh Narang, dynamics specialist on leave at a private space startup. I don't care whether the public calls it speeding up and slowing down. The fit improves with a small phase-link term. It's not a sale. It's not standard outgassing. It's weird. He refuses to speculate further on record. We've seen this dance, says Kira, host of an alt-media channel with 1 million+ followers. Outage plus Sky event equals nothing to see here from the same agencies. Then months later, surprise, classified memo. She runs a montage, AWS status pages, a JWST heat map, a meme of a nickel bolt with a lens flare. She calls it the double blind. A UN science advisor, Mei Tanaka, chooses a longer game. There is a no-reply tradition in SETI protocols. Do not transmit without broad consensus. In the age of private telescopes and cloud monopolies, the governance picture is harder. But the caution still applies. We verify slowly, or we fracture quickly. Scenarios: first mapping. Coincidence: unrelated dual blind spots. Timing: bad luck alignment. A high-probability cloud failure sometime this quarter plus a predictable solar conjunction means routine technical debt, misconfigurations, or control plane regressions. The sun's geometry. Motive: none required. Assessment: parsimonious. Many independent systems fail. The sun still hides things. Cyber attack timed to conjunction. Timing: adversary triggers DNS/auth instability when attention is focused on sky chatter, amplifying confusion. Means DNS poisoning, IAM key abuse, or targeted load exhaustion on auth endpoints. Social amplification via hashtag alien probe narratives. Motive: test resilience. Mask a separate operation. Sow distrust. Assessment: plausible but unproven. Requires indicators of compromise. None public yet. Cosmic to terrestrial causation. Timing. A space weather effect coincident with 3I/Atlas activity perturbs satellite links or timing sources. Cascades into cloud control planes. Means solar radio bursts, GPS timing anomalies, unexpected RF interference. Motive none. Nature. Assessment low. Space weather monitors did not flag major anomalies around 3:11 Eastern Time. Evidence thin. Opportunistic exploitation. Timing. An unrelated AWS incident creates noise. A third party, criminal or state, leverages it to push misinformation linking 3I/Atlas and the outage, or to steal during chaos. Means botnets, deepfakes, false metallic line leaks, lateral movement in distracted SOCs. Motive, monetize panic, test in FOSSEC posture, political gain. Assessment, medium. Early media artifacts show coordinated framing. Technical proof pending. Technological signature on 3I/Atlas. Timing. Non-gravitational acceleration is deliberate, active control, rather than cometary. Means unknown propulsion. Emission lines consistent with alloy vapor. Unusual polarization from engineered surfaces. Motive. Unknown, probe, debris, or artifact. Assessment. Extraordinary claim. Current data are compatible with natural explanations. Requires overwhelming evidence post-conjunction. Multi-cloud auth and names. Decouple identity and internal DNS from a single region/vendor. Short-term. Deploy read-only failover for auth tokens, regional split horizon DNS. Test monthly. Medium-term. Vendor-diverse control planes. This reduces correlated failures when US East 1 sneezes. Distributed sky coverage. Commit funding to solar avoidance vantage points. Sun-skirting coronagraphs and off-axis spacecraft, e.g., L4/L5 microsats, to watch targets during conjunctions. If the ground can't see, put eyes in space at different angles. Open, stamped data. Require instrument teams, cloud providers, and citizen networks to publish timestamped, signed minimal logs. Polarimetry curves, spectral extractions, incident metrics. Open evidence blunts hysteria. Cable and backbone transparency. OTDR snapshot publication after major cuts. Public BGP announcements archived and searchable. Make reroute maps visible to non-specialists. No reply, updated. Reaffirm the no reply principle for techno-signature claims, but modernize the process to include private actors and cloud vendors in a transparent consultative frame under IAA/UN auspices. At 3:11 Eastern Time, Maria hit refresh and learned what many learned. The invisible has joints and those joints can lock. The same week, a speck from elsewhere slid behind the sun and taught another version of the lesson. The sky, too, has blind corners. In labs and NOCs, people did the unglamorous work of stitching sight back together. Flushing caches, rebalancing pools, fitting residuals, calibrating flats. Two interpretations can stand at once. One is dull and deeply true. We live in overlapping systems that sometimes fail in synchrony, not in cause, an outage here and occlusion there, and our job is to harden both. The other is a live possibility with a high bar. That 3I/Atlas is more than ice and dust, that its speed variations are not a comet's breath but a signature we don't yet have the courage or data to name. When 3I/Atlas emerges from the sun's glare, cold pixels will decide which story gets weight. Until then, a neutrino's track, a polarization curve, a ratio in a noisy spectrum, and a status page we reload too often are all we have. Somewhere under Antarctic ice, a sensor chirped once. Somewhere in Virginia, an auth table timed out. Perhaps we have only heard a fragment of the symphony. When the cloud blinked and 3I/Atlas vanished behind the sun, the world's reaction oscillated between curiosity and unease. The first week was noise. AWS dashboards flickered green again, while astrophysicists debated residuals and ratios. But questions persisted, the kind that don't die when services come back online. Part 1 traced the dual disappearance. Part 2 enters the forensic phase. How engineers and scientists dissect failures, reconstruct data, and separate noise from signal. Logs, packet traces, and photon counts replace speculation. What they find explains much, though not everything. The first rule in any outage review is simple. Start from the timestamps. The AWS US East 1 region is a web of microservices, dependencies, and authentication gateways. Every API call writes a heartbeat. Every heartbeat leaves a trail. On October 20th, that trail stuttered. At the data sources, forensic analysts pulled from multiple systems. CloudTrail logs, API calls, identity events, configuration pushes. Route 53 resolver telemetry, DNS error rates. Thousand Eyes and RIPE Atlas external monitors, synthetic latency probes. BGP dumps, network route advertisements during the window. Customer-provided syslogs, cross-checks from major tenants, healthcare, fintech. By correlating UTC timestamps, they built a minute-by-minute reconstruction. B. The sequence of failure. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 9 minutes and 58 seconds Z. Control plane. Config_push failed SVC. Auth. AZ3. Timeout. Reason. Auth DB lock wait. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 10 minutes and 31 seconds Z auth DB. Write backlog exceeded threshold autothrottle engaged. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 11 minutes and 7 seconds Z DNS resolver. Next domain rate spike 98% region US, East, 1. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 12 minutes and 30 seconds ZLB health checker. Unhealthy back-end pool detected initiating draining. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours 15 minutes and 22 seconds Z DynamoDB. Timeout ratio 42% rising. October 20th, 2025 T3 hours and 19 minutes Z. Region failover attempt initiated partial success. Zones AZ1, AZ3 only. Each line represents a domino. The authDB lockwait triggered throttling, which jammed the control plane. The plane's partial stall increased load on DNS, and cached failures propagated outward. This is how a single region's heartbeat can mimic a heart attack. At 03:11:07Z, internal dashboards reported a 98% next domain spike, the precise moment Maria's screen froze in the Midwest hospital. Engineers noted something else. No signature of deliberate tampering. No new keys, no anomalous IP aggregations, no off-hours API storms. The failure looked painfully ordinary, an internal feedback loop between auth DNS and database components. See what they checked for. To rule out intrusion, AWS Incident Response compared forensic indicators with known IOCs, indicators of compromise. Unknown SSH keys in control plane hosts? None. Unusual script persistence in /opt/boot/init.d? No entries. Aggregation of traffic from foreign IP clusters? Normal baseline variance. Off-hours administrative actions with anomalous tokens? 2 false positives. Automated rotation jobs. The verdict after 72 hours. No evidence of external compromise. Still, no evidence isn't proof of innocence. As one SRE joked in an internal chat, absence of logs is not absence of ghosts. D. Internal commentary. You could mistake this for a coordinated attack, wrote senior engineer R. Echevarria in an internal memo, but the timing aligns perfectly with an automated config push that deadlocked due to a missed semaphore. We built a cascade ourselves. Another engineer quipped dryly. If aliens wanted to hide a probe, they'd just wait for our change window. While AWS logs pointed inward, network operators looked under the sea. Between October 19th to 21st, latency spikes rippled through Mediterranean and transatlantic backbones. The AAE-1 and CIV/WACS cables showed transient packet loss at multiple landing stations. A diagnosing the deep. Cable health is monitored via OTDR, optical time domain reflectometry. A laser pulse sent down the fiber reflects back at any break or splice. The time delay maps to distance. OTDR, AAE-1, 2025-10-20T03:10Z. reflection at 124.3 kilometers, attenuation plus 3.4 dB, signal form, smooth taper, mechanical strain, not cut. The shape of the reflection curve indicated anchor drag, not sabotage. Repair ships confirmed it days later. A shipping vessel had dropped anchor outside the designated corridor near port said, nicking a protective sheath. B. The routing cascade. At 03:09, 03:20Z, BGP announcements showed large-scale rerouting across Tier 1 providers. Traffic that normally flowed via Egypt detoured through Marseille and Lisbon. The additional -60 to 80 milliseconds latency interacted badly with cloud services already stressed by DNS retries, compounding user-visible failure. An engineer at Level 3/CenturyLink summarized it in one sentence. Packets took the long way home just when the servers forgot their names. See, operational response. By 10:00Z, provisional reroutes stabilized. Within 24 hours, repair ships deployed a replacement segment. The coincidence in timing was inconvenient, it fueled online narratives, but telemetry suggested independence. One was a physical abrasion 124 kilometers offshore. The other, a software deadlock in Virginia. No causal bridge between them. Space observation forensic, JWST, polarimetry, and neutrinos. While engineers analyzed logs, astronomers turned to light. A JWST data pipeline. The JWST near-infrared spectrograph, NIRSpec, captured 4 low S/N spectra of 3I/Atlas between September 29 and October 4. Each frame went through the standard pipeline. Raw calibrated, dark subtraction, flat fielding, wavelength mapping, telluric correction, removing Earth atmosphere absorption features, extraction, summing signal along the trace, subtracting sky background, line identification, cross-matching with molecular templates. A reanalysis at the Space Telescope Science Institute, STSCI, found subtle pipeline artifacts, specifically oversubtraction of sky background due to misclassified pixels in the extraction mask. That oversubtraction could inflate CO2 relative to H2O. After recalibration, the ratio adjusted slightly. CO2, H2O equals 6.7 plus or minus 1.5, still high but not absurd. Dr. Lien Chun, lead spectroscopist, called it an unusual comet, not an engineered one. B. Polarimetry checks. Ground polarimetry teams at Paranal, Canary Islands, and Mauna Kea compared datasets. They corrected for instrument polarization, atmospheric scattering, and moonlight contamination. The inversion angle persisted near 17 degrees plus or minus 2, outside common ranges but statistically significant only at 1.8 sigma, intriguing but inconclusive. We're still missing phase angles near 30 degrees, said Dr. Soto in a follow-up. The sun took them from us. Once conjunction passes, we'll fill the gap. See metallic emission claims. Tabloid discoveries of anti-alloy lines traced to an unvetted preprint uploaded from a private spectrograph in Chile. The dataset lacked calibration lamps. Wavelengths were offset by 0.7 nanometers, enough to misidentify FIO bands as NI lines. IAA Technical Note TN 2025-45. No verified metallic emission features detected in JWST or ground spectra. Unverified claims remain under peer review. D. Neutrino crosscheck. IceCube event 2550919A drew attention because its reconstructed direction overlapped, broadly, the incoming trajectory of 3I/Atlas. Analysts reran reconstruction with updated calibration constants. The angular uncertainty ellipse, plus or minus 5 degrees, covered minus 80 deg superscript 2 of sky. The chance alignment probability, roughly 1 in 40. Dr. L. Halvorsen, IceCube operations. One neutrino doesn't make a messenger. Still, if another arrives when the object reemerges, we'll listen. Dual domain correlation analysis. The internet outage and the astronomical event occurred within a 36-hour window, a seductive temporal overlap. Statistically, though, overlaps abound. A rare event frequency. Major AWS regional outages, -5 per year. Interstellar object conjunctions, -1 every 4 to 6 years. The probability that any two rare events occur within plus or minus 2 days by chance is small but non-zero, is almost equal to 5/365 times 1/730 is almost equal to 1.8 times 10 minus 5. P is almost equal to 5/365 times 1/730 is almost equal to 1.8 times 10 minus 5 per year. Multiply by thousands of possible event pairs people could notice, and coincidences emerge weekly. B. Trial factor. In human pattern recognition, we test multiple hypotheses at once. Every cloud glitch, meteor sighting, or earthquake becomes a candidate link. This trial factor inflates apparent significance. Statisticians call it the look elsewhere effect. As data scientist Anais Girard wrote in her memo, in a connected world, the sample size of coincidences is infinite. Our brains filter for poetry, not p-values. See timing cross-correlation. When analysts computed the cross-correlation between DNS error rates and telescope residual timestamps, no alignment peaks surfaced. The AWS spike was 03:11Z. The last valid 3I/Atlas photometry came at 02:02Z the following day, separated by 23 hours, zero correlation. Temporal adjacency is not causation. Intelligence and defense perspectives. Not everyone can afford coincidence. A. Dual-use technologies. SETI, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, overlaps with SIGINT, signals intelligence. Sensitive antennas and optical sensors designed to detect narrowband cosmic signals also detect terrestrial transmissions. For agencies, 3I/Atlas's anomalous motion triggered dual concerns. Could it be observing us? Or could others observe through it? B. Internal briefings. A declassified summary from an unnamed Western Defense Ministry outlined the framework. Detection IAA review UN Capuo's notification national security briefings. Conditional. On October 23, Capuo's logged a preliminary consultative note titled Potential Non-Gravitational Object 3I/Atlas. This classification level restricted science. The note emphasized transparency but recommended cautious handling of unverified compositional claims. See why security cared. Non-gravitational acceleration, even natural, implies outgassing jets, meaning material emission. If that material were metallic, it might include isotopes valuable for isotope tracing or propulsion research. For military planners, the difference between natural nickel vapor and engineered exhaust is academic only until it isn't. One defense analyst, speaking anonymously, our job isn't to decide if it's alien. Our job is to ask. If it weren't, who'd want us to think it is? D. The classified silo problem. Each layer, science, diplomacy, security, adds its own gate. Some data become restricted for verification, then vanish into silence. As Dr. Narang commented, every time we quarantine data for caution, we create an epistemic vacuum. That vacuum breeds noise, citizen observers and AI analysis. While agencies debated, the public computed. A citizen networks. Thousands of amateurs contribute to backyard optical arrays synchronized via GPS projects like SkySense and OpenSETI upload terabytes nightly. During the conjunction gap, those networks pivoted to analysis mining archives for preconjunction anomalies. User @astro_lemur on Reddit posted, light curve shows microvariability -0.15 mag at 15-minute cadence. Maybe rotation? Maybe pulses. Within hours, others reprocessed the same data with different baselines and found the effect vanished. Citizen science is fast. It's also volatile. B. Quantum computing shortcuts. At the Zurich Quantum Research Hub, a team used superconducting qubits to rerun orbital fits using Monte Carlo ensembles 100 times faster than classical clusters. The algorithm flagged a bimodal posterior, two families of possible trajectories. One converged on a clean hyperbolic escape. The other, faintly, suggested temporary capture into a weak solar orbit, a computational mirage caused by data noise. Still, screenshots leaked, fueling claims that 3i/Atlas hesitated. See AI pattern finding. Private AI pipelines trained on transient surveys began classifying 3i/Atlas as an unknown transient class. The models weren't wrong, they were merely unsupervised. A headline misread the output. AI can't identify 3i/Atlas. NASA baffled. In truth, AI just said none of the above. Dr. Gerard again. We've democratized both observation and overinterpretation. Summary of evidence and likelihood matrix. Scenario evidence likelihood comment. Coincidence independent failures no IOC in AWS. No temporal correlation. Natural conjunction high simplest and sufficient. Routine technical failure internal lock weight. Cascade confirmed high postmortem consistent. Cyber attack timed to event no confirmed compromise medium possible but unproven. Opportunistic exploitation coordinated narratives in social media medium misinformation likely. Cosmic causal link no space weather anomalies low physics inconsistent. Technological signature unverified lines. Acceleration residuals low requires extraordinary proof. In Bayesian terms, the posterior strongly favors human-made error and natural celestial mechanics over any coupling between them. Yet probabilities comfort no one seeking meaning. Implications and infrastructure lessons. 1. Systemic fragility. One change queue in Northern Virginia can throttle a fifth of the world's digital services. Redundancy must become default, not luxury. 2. Distributed observation. A single vantage point, Earth-based telescopes, leaves blind zones. Invest in off-axis observers, L4/L5 microsat coronagraphs to maintain continuous interstellar surveillance. 3. Cross-domain transparency. Cloud vendors, observatories, and public institutions should share minimal, signed telemetry within hours. The same protocols that secure banks should secure trust. 4. Ethical verification. Citizen science needs guardrails, metadata standards, calibration norms, and ethical AI use. Without them, democratized data becomes democratized confusion. 5. Modernized no-reply. Revise the SETI no-reply clause for an era where private satellites and cloud providers act faster than governments. Delay isn't safety. Transparency is. By late October, the technical teams filed their reports. Services stabilized, spectra reprocessed, and polarimetry curves archived. Official narratives settled into a cautious equilibrium. No attack, no alien, no proof of anything except complexity. Yet under that calm, a new set of actors stirred: diplomats, policy advisors, public communicators. The IA's preliminary note reached the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. Word leaked of closed-door briefings involving space agencies and defense representatives. The phrase non-gravitational object began appearing in legal drafts. An internal UN email dated October 29, 2025 16:03Z read, simply, pending verification outcomes, we recommend a joint communiqué addressing both the infrastructure resilience incident and the observational anomaly. Public interest is accelerating. Next comes politics, interpretation, and the battle for narrative ownership. By the end of October 2025, the facts seemed clear, but clarity is not the same as closure. The AWS postmortem blamed a deadlock. The cables showed anchor drag. JWST recalibrated spectra. The ratios softened but did not vanish. Yet one anomaly survived every correction: 3i/Atlas's changing speed, a pattern of slight accelerations and decelerations that refused clean modeling. As the object slipped deeper into the sun's glare, its data became myth. What remained was interpretation, and interpretation belongs to politics, media, and memory as much as to science. Official government and agency responses. United States. NASA's public statement on October 27 was terse. All available evidence indicates that 3i/Atlas exhibits non-gravitational motion consistent with natural outgassing. Data remain under analysis. No connection to terrestrial infrastructure incidents has been found. Behind the scenes, internal NASA memos, later leaked, showed a tone far less settled. An email from a Goddard Dynamics team read, "Even with outgassing models, residuals remain -3.2 sigma. Variable acceleration direction, sometimes sunward. No comet we know does that." At the Pentagon, the Defense Advanced Space Surveillance Office, DASO, requested classified briefings from NASA and the IAA, citing potential dual-use implications. The note used a single ambiguous phrase, "persistent low-thrust behavior, European Union." ESA's Technical Note 2025-42, issued October 28, echoed the American caution but added a subtle divergence. "We recommend continued observation post-conjunction to verify if acceleration repeats." A non-repeating profile supports volatile loss. A repeating one implies structural response or internal pressure cycling. European Parliament subcommittees on AI and space policy convened a closed hearing on cloud dependence and celestial uncertainty. One MEP tweeted afterward, "If a glitch on Earth and a comet's wobble can both shake trust, maybe the threat is not out there, it's inside our systems." China and Russia. China's National Space Administration released a cryptic line on state television. "Interstellar objects remind us that vigilance must be continuous." Unofficially, independent Chinese researchers on Weibo shared data from the Purple Mountain Observatory, showing a mild reversal in photometric trend before conjunction, possibly confirming the deceleration. Posts vanished within hours. Russia's Roscosmos took a different tack. Its director, Viktor Anisimov, called the entire debate a Western psychological exercise, but later quietly requested data sharing with ESA. No one believed anyone else. International organizations and diplomatic reactions. United Nations. On October 29, the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNUSA and COPUOS, Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, held an emergency video session. The agenda combined two topics that had never before shared a page: infrastructure resilience and potential non-gravitational celestial objects. The draft communiqué circulated that evening read, "In light of concurrent events impacting both space observation and terrestrial network integrity, the committee underscores the necessity of transparent data sharing between commercial providers and international observatories." An unnamed delegate from Japan proposed forming a permanent joint analysis task force, merging digital resilience experts and space scientists. The US objected, "jurisdictional overreach." France supported it, "symbolic integration." China abstained. No vote passed, but the idea stuck. IAA and IAU coordination. The International Astronomical Union, IAU, the quieter sibling of the IAA, issued a statement on November 1 acknowledging persisting dynamic anomalies and calling for open-source orbital reconstruction using JPL Horizons data. Within hours, volunteers mirrored all three I/Atlas data to decentralized IPFS nodes, ensuring, ironically, that even if AWS fell again, the data would survive. One scientist commented on Mastodon, "We finally achieved data decentralization, not through planning but through paranoia." Media and public discourse. The story's second life began online. Mainstream headlines. Interstellar visitor shows strange acceleration. NASA says, probably natural. New York Times, October 28. Comet or probe? What we know about 3I/Atlas. BBC, October 29. The week the internet and the sky both glitched. Wired, October 30. Each balanced intrigue with reassurance. Each failed to slow the tide of speculation. Social media and alternative channels. On TikTok and YouTube, edits juxtaposed AWS dashboards and telescope footage with eerie synth music. Hashtags #3iAtlas, #BlindSky, and #digitalcollapse surged. A viral video titled, "When the Servers Slept and the Stars Moved" hit 12 million views in a week. Alt-media figures went further. Kira's channel released episode 12, The Variable Object, claiming the acceleration pattern formed a Morse-like pulse. Her proof? 3 data points. Her confidence? Absolute. Meanwhile, Astronomers fought disinformation in comment sections, explaining that statistical noise is not equal to signal. Few listened. The meme economy moves faster than peer review. Citizen anxiety. Search trends spiked for AWS Secure Alternatives, JWST Live Feed, and How to Track Interstellar Objects. A Gallup-style online poll showed 42% of respondents believed 3i/Atlas could be artificial. A smaller number, but large enough to shape policy discussions, linked the object to information blackouts. Public hearings and transparency efforts. U.S. Congressional hearing, November 3, 2025. Title: Cloud Resilience and Extraterrestrial Data Integrity. Witnesses included Dr. Lien Chun, JWST spectroscopist; Lance Morgan, AWS SRE; Dr. Mei Tanaka, UN Science Advisor. The transcript captures tension more than answers. Senator Harkins: Is there any evidence the object 3i/Atlas influenced or coincided with the AWS failure? Morgan: Coincided, yes. Influenced, no. Our logs don't talk to comets. Harkins: And yet, the public perception of linkage persists. Tanaka: That's because people lost two kinds of trust in 1 week: digital and cosmic. Dr. Chen's closing remark became a headline. We're not afraid of what's out there. We're afraid of how fast we can't see. The hearing ended without resolutions, but funding discussions began for Project Dual Sight, a proposal for satellites monitoring both Earth's cloud latency and near-Sun objects simultaneously. ESA and UN Open Briefing, November 5th. A joint video stream featured international experts, AI translated live into 9 languages. Viewer comments scrolled faster than moderators could delete conspiracy claims. Still, the act of openness itself had symbolic weight. Transparency became performance, and performance became policy. Think tank and expert analysis. Global Security Institute, GSI. GSI's November white paper framed 3i/Atlas as a test of epistemic infrastructure. The incident demonstrated that truth supply chains are as fragile as data supply chains. When both falter, governance fills with myth. They recommended cross-domain data escrow systems, simultaneous release protocols for scientific and network incidents, establishment of a digital Geneva Convention on information integrity during global anomalies, Center for Space Ethics, CSE. The CSE report, titled Who Owns the Unknown?, addressed moral stakes. If 3i/Atlas were artificial, even hypothetically, which jurisdiction claims its study? And if it is natural, what moral duty do we have not to weaponize its mystery? Their conclusion: science without governance becomes speculation with equations. The Copernicus Policy Forum, focused on public communication failures. Scientific agencies remain honest but slow. The public domain is fast but inaccurate. Between them lies an information vacuum where narrative entrepreneurs thrive. They proposed a rapid clarity unit, cross-agency task force delivering verified micro-briefings within 6 hours of any global anomaly. Citizen science, AI, and the social machine. While think tanks wrote, citizens computed again. Open-source tools like OrbitML and CosmoFit let amateurs simulate trajectories in browser tabs. Within days, thousands uploaded visualizations of 3i/Atlas entering and leaving the Milky Way. Most were wrong, but their visuals flooded the net. The illusion of comprehension scaled faster than comprehension itself. AI narratives. Large language models fine-tuned on astronomy papers generated plausible-sounding but false analyses that spread across Medium, Substack, and TikTok voiceovers. One viral AI essay claimed, "The acceleration pattern mirrors Voyager's 1977 telemetry cadence." The math didn't check, but the poetry did. Data democratization or disinformation. Projects like Atlas Watch DAO minted NFTs representing observation timestamps. Own a pixel of history. Philosopher Nora Bell summarized it best. We turned the sky into content. The content turned back into belief. Emerging conflicts and risks. Diplomatic tensions. The absence of a unified explanation bred geopolitical friction. US and EU officials accused certain nations of data suppression. In response, a leaked Chinese memo accused Western agencies of instrumentalizing uncertainty for tech leverage. At COP, the phrase information sovereignty entered official vocabulary. The right of each state to control the narrative of celestial events. It was a quiet revolution. Space politics entering the semantic age. Information warfare. Cyber intelligence firms traced coordinated social media botnets promoting 3 competing storylines. Alien technology confirmed. Cover-up by elites. Nothing happened, all fake. The goal wasn't persuasion but paralysis. As analyst Renaud Vasseur noted, when every narrative seems manipulative, truth dies of equivalence. Economic ripples. Cloud-reliant companies reported a 9% dip in user confidence metrics. Insurance firms began drafting astro-infrastructure event clauses to price the risk of correlated outages, physical or perceptual. Ethical and policy debates. The crisis sparked 3 unresolved moral questions. Should private companies hold exclusive telemetry of public impact events? AWS DNS logs were proprietary. Without them, external investigators worked blind. Should governments classify extraterrestrial data for security? Every classification delays truth, but unverified data can ignite chaos. Who decides what counts as technological in space? If 3I/Atlas's motion were deliberate, the first contact would not be with aliens, but with bureaucracy. On November 9th, a faint signal reached the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO. In coronagraph images, a speck re-emerged from the sun's glare. Early photometry hinted at the same flicker in brightness seen before conjunction, possibly rotation, possibly control. An internal memo from ESA's Solar Division at 21:17 Universal Time coordinated read, "Object reacquired. Brightness modulation persists. Acceleration vector consistent with prior anomalies. Tracking to resume." That line leaked before midnight. Twitter, TikTok, and alt forums exploded again. It's back. But among scientists, fatigue tempered excitement. Dr. Chan texted a colleague at 02:03Z. "We get one more chance to understand it, or to misunderstand it better." The blind sky was bright again. Part 4 would begin with light and the question of what or who makes an object change speed between the stars. When 3I/Atlas re-emerged from the sun's glare on November 9, 2025, its light returned, faint, intermittent, familiar. Telescopes confirmed what rumor had shouted first. The object was still accelerating and decelerating in patterns that refused a purely gravitational solution. Part 3 followed the political and media storm. Part 4 moves inward into control rooms, laboratories, and encrypted Slack channels, where equations replace press statements, and the word truth means something measurable. Here, the battle is not between nations or influencers, but between caution and curiosity, between what we can prove and what we suspect. 2. Internal investigations behind the official line. NASA's Deep Space Dynamics Lab, DSDL. Inside Building 34 at the Goddard Space Flight Center, a small glass-walled room hosts the DSDL anomaly team. They work under fluorescent quiet, surrounded by monitors looping orbital simulations. A whiteboard note dated November 10, 2025, 8:12 Eastern Time reads, "Delta V pattern persists. Amplitude 0.0025 plus or minus 0.0004 meters per square second. No solar wind correlation." Engineer Tara McConnell recalibrates trajectory data from the JPL Horizons database. She explains, outgassing can change velocity, but direction usually flips with rotation. Here it doesn't. It's like something adjusting, not venting. Her supervisor, Dr. Rajesh Narang, refuses to say control. Instead, he calls it phase-locked correction. The language is cautious. The implication isn't. ESA's Astrodynamics Division, ESOC Darmstadt. Across the Atlantic, ESA's ESOC facility performs independent fits. Lead analyst Paolo Rizzi writes in his log, 2025-11 11T09:42Z input, 79 OBS points post-conjunction. Residual RMS, 0.27 arcsec, expected 0.09. Applied SRP model, standard plus 15% variation. Non-gravitational acceleration vector lags radial by -25 degrees. RISI sends the dataset to the International Astronomical Union under the code NGF25A. The lag angle 25 degrees off radial is abnormal. If sunlight were pushing it via radiation pressure, the vector should be nearly radial. Something else is modulating the force. The IA Working Group, the International Academy of Astronautics, IAA, convenes a closed task force codenamed Vigil 3I. Participants from NASA, ESA, JAXA, and private partners meet via encrypted channels on AWS GovCloud. Ironically, the same infrastructure that failed weeks earlier. Their minutes, later leaked. Read. Consensus. Acceleration persists. Non-periodic but bounded. Possible cyclic delta-V signatures. Approximate 14.3 hours. Potential coupling to rotational state. Unclear if natural or deliberate. Then comes the line that shaped the next month. Recommend limited disclosure pending further verification to prevent public misinterpretation. The same sentence would later fuel accusations of a cover-up. 3. Conflict within organizations. The leak. On November 13th, an anonymous email titled Blind Sky Internal lands in the inboxes of several journalists. Attached, partial screenshots from the Vigil 3I meeting. One excerpt reads, acceleration profile resembles low thrust correction maneuvers. Delta V few mm/s. Pattern non-random. Within hours, alt-media channels brandish it as proof of engineered motion. Within NASA, a witch hunt begins. Dr. McConnell posts privately in a secure chat. This is why people stop being honest in internal memos. Every comma becomes a conspiracy. The divide. Two camps form inside agencies. The verificationists, led by Dr. Chun and Dr. Soto. They insist on more data, less speculation. Every anomaly is an artifact until proven otherwise. The open theorists, led by Narang and Rizzi, they argue the behavior defies current models and should be treated as a potential technological signature. Dismissing the improbable is as unscientific as believing it. Tensions rise. By November 15th, two internal working papers circulate with mutually incompatible conclusions. One titled 3I/Atlas, Natural Acceleration Model. The other, Candidate-Controlled Trajectory Hypothesis. Both use the same data and both claim to explain it best. 4. The deep analysis, searching for physical mechanisms. A. Spectral and thermal rechecks. JWST's second observing window opens November 14th to 20th, catching the object as it reemerges. This time, signal-to-noise improves. The thermal model team detects a weak, intermittent emission near 4.26 micrometers, possibly CO2 again, but now variable in sync with brightness changes. Spectrum, JWST. November 17, 2025, CO2 flux varies by factor 3 within 12 hours. Thermal inertia inconsistent with porous comet dust. Dr. Lien Chun notes, temperature response is too quick. Something's changing surface area faster than expected. Maybe fracturing, maybe panels. She laughs at the word panels as she says it, but the silence afterward is heavy. B. Polarimetry update. Post-conjunction observations restore phase angles up to 32 degrees. The new inversion curve shows a double peak. One at 17 degrees, another faint at 29 degrees. Double peaks in polarization imply heterogeneous surfaces, smooth and rough regions alternating. Natural? Possibly, but the ratios resemble laboratory measurements of sintered metal dust, not pure silicate or ice. C. Dynamical simulation. Supercomputer clusters at the European Center for Scientific Computing run 10 Monte Carlo simulations incorporating solar radiation pressure, outgassing, and YORP effects. Results: 98.7% of solutions fit within natural variance bounds, comet-like jets. 1.3% require external thrust impulses synchronized with brightness cycles. That 1.3% is small but not zero. The summary line in the report: data insufficient to confirm active control. Non-gravitational anomalies persist at low confidence but high public consequence. 5. Internal communications and ethical dilemmas. Fragmented messages. Email, NASA, November 18, 2025 02:41Z. From M. Tanaka to DSDL Core. Subject: ethics of withholding. We owe the public transparency, but raw data misused becomes myth. How do we communicate uncertainty in a viral world? Slack, ESA_SOC, November 19, 2025 07:13Z. User, P.Rizzi. I'm tired of pretending these numbers behave. If it's natural, fine. But stop acting like the word artificial is taboo. Internal Memo IAA, November 20, 2025. Reminder: until peer review concludes, all references to active maneuvering remain speculative. Please refrain from using media channels to comment. The memo leaks within an hour. Irony becomes the only constant. 6. The science behind the doubt. Reassessing acceleration. The acceleration magnitude, around 0.0025 meters per square second, is tiny but persistent. At that rate, the object's velocity could shift by several kilometers per hour per day, enough to alter its outbound path measurably. Dr. Narang demonstrates the problem to visiting policymakers. You can explain acceleration or direction, but not both with the same model. To match both, you need an actuator, something choosing when and where. He stops short of saying engine. Possible natural models. CO2 jet model. Localized gas vents on rotating surface. Explains short impulses but not direction stability. Thermal cracking model. Day-night cycling breaks surface crust, releasing trapped gas symmetrically. Explains bursts, not consistency. Electrostatic dust ejection. Solar wind charges surface, ejects particles. Extremely weak, directionally unstable. Each model fits some data, not all. The controlled trajectory hypothesis. A minority model simulates the object as an irregular body with variable reflective panels adjusting to solar pressure. A passive control system, not powered, just mechanical. Like a seed reacting to sunlight, Rizzi says, or a probe without a mission. The phrase sticks. 7. Organizational fracture and pressure. Political oversight. The U.S. Office of Science and Technology Policy requests all internal drafts. Word spreads that a classified annex now exists within NASA's 3I/Atlas file. The annex, officials insist, contains sensitive telemetry sources. Translation: data from defense radars or deep space surveillance systems. ESA refuses to share their raw data until an equal access guarantee is signed. Collaboration halts. Dr. Chun resigns temporarily, citing administrative fatigue. Dr. Narang is reassigned to an unrelated project. Inside the scientific community, everyone knows what that means. The corporate angle. Private space companies sense opportunity. Skygate Analytics, a startup specializing in AI-based orbit reconstruction, claims its model proves intelligent modulation. Their YouTube presentation, flashy, cinematic, garners 20 million views in 2 days. Professional astronomers groan, but governments notice. Investors too. 8. Deeper laboratory work, material signatures, sample simulations. In the absence of physical samples, laboratories simulate radiation-driven outgassing on nickel and silicate composites under vacuum. Result: metallic composites reproduce double-peaked polarization at 16 to 30 degrees, matching 3I/Atlas. Dr. Soto cautions, coincidence of pattern doesn't prove composition. Many materials scatter light alike. Still, the finding reopens debate over the anti-alloy line previously dismissed. When recalibrated, one faint emission near 1.04 micrometers remains unassigned, neither common molecular nor atomic. Its identification table reads simply, unmatched. Neutrino follow-up. On November 22nd, IceCube records another neutrino event, 290 to 300 TeV, arriving from roughly the same right ascension as 3I/Atlas. Probability of random coincidence. 1 in 200. IceCube event 2551122A. Energy. 298 plus or minus 10 TeV. RA. 152 degrees plus or minus 3 degrees. Dec. Plus 38 degrees plus or minus 4 degrees. Temporal separation from last photometric burst. 43 minutes. The correlation makes headlines inside Slack channels, not in newspapers. 9. The human side of verification. Midnight at Goddard. It's 2:14 a.m. The lab lights hum. Dr. McConnell replays the latest data file, a string of numbers that might or might not be history. She types in her notebook, "Sometimes, I think we're less afraid of aliens than of equations that don't converge." Her colleague replies softly, "Equations don't lie. People do." Outside, snow begins to fall over Maryland. In Darmstadt, dawn glows across the control center's glass facade. 2 continents, 1 silence. 10. Findings and draft reports. By November 25th, each agency prepares its interim conclusion. NASA DSDL Interim Report. 3I/Atlas exhibits sustained non-gravitational acceleration. Natural explanations remain viable though incomplete. Artificial hypotheses lack supporting evidence. ESA Technical Bulletin, November 25th. Variable acceleration amplitude and double-peaked polarization persist post-conjunction. Physical cause indeterminate. A. Vigil 3I summary. Statistical significance of anomalies -2.8 sigma. Recommend extended observation window through Q1 2026. Behind the words. Those documents sound neutral, but neutrality hides exhaustion. Privately, scientists admit they're no closer to certainty than in July. 11. Broader implications for science and society. The 3I/Atlas investigation exposes fault lines not just in astrophysics but in governance. Epistemic fragility. When data contradicts theory, institutions splinter. Information leakage. Every internal memo becomes public theater. Trust as infrastructure. Once broken, it can't be patched by committees. Human bias. Fear of ridicule skews interpretation as much as faith does. As philosopher Nora Bell writes, "The more data we gather, the less we agree on what it means. The universe may be infinite. Consensus is not." 12. The final laboratory meeting. Date: November 27, 2025. Location: hybrid session between Goddard ESOC and IAA. Agenda Item 3, Trajectory Reacquisition and Model Uncertainty. The meeting transcript excerpt. Chen. Acceleration up again. Same magnitude, same direction. Soto. If it's rotation-driven, we'd see phase lag. We don't. Rizzi. Then someone or something is correcting it. Narang. Or the universe is laughing at us. Laughter. Then silence. Moderator. So what do we tell the public? Tanaka. Tell them we're still looking. And that we might be being looked at, too. The line isn't official, but everyone copies it. On November 29th, at 3:14 Universal Time Coordinated, multiple observatories detect a sudden drop in brightness, magnitude 2 lower than expected, followed by complete optical disappearance for 18 minutes. Infrared instruments, however, record a faint, consistent heat signature moving steadily along the predicted outbound track. Log, ESA Telescope, November 29th, 2025 03:16Z. Object Visual Mag, 21.0, below limit. Infrared flux, constant, non-decaying. The contradiction is impossible. Dark to eyes, bright to sensors. A short press release drafts overnight. Transient photometric anomaly under review. Instruments nominal. But inside the IA secure chat, someone types, "If it can dim itself, it can hide itself." No one replies. The file closes with a single line. Observation continues. By the final days of November 2025, the mystery of 3I/Atlas had fractured into two parallel worlds. In one world, the Scientific 1 telescope's data servers and simulation codes continued their patient work, measuring, fitting, comparing. In the other, the social and political world, speculation had achieved escape velocity. The previous parts chronicled that fracture. Now, as Part 5 begins, both worlds collide. The object is fading, the archives are growing, and the question remains, what exactly passed through our neighborhood of the galaxy, and what did we learn about ourselves when it did? 2. Public disclosure. The release of the data. The announcement. On December 4, 2025, NASA and ESA held a rare joint press conference. The headline topic: Final Public Data Release, 3I/Atlas Post-Conjunction Observations. The event streamed to over 18 million viewers, the largest audience for a scientific broadcast since the first Mars landing footage. A banner on screen read, "Transparency in Science, Unity in Observation." Dr. Rajesh Narang, recently reinstated, opened with a cautious statement: "We are publishing all processed observational data from JWST, Hubble, and participating ground telescopes. Our goal is simple collective verification. Truth is best tested by many eyes." Next spoke Dr. Lien Chen, visibly exhausted yet resolute. "The acceleration persists but decreases over time. The object is stable outbound, cooling. We may never know what caused its irregular motion, but speculation should not replace science." The data dump. At 18:02 Universal Time Coordinated, the Open Astronomy portal went live. 4.3 terabytes of telemetry, spectra, and photometric logs uploaded simultaneously to mirrors across Europe, the US, and Japan. A secondary copy, stored on the Interplanetary File System, IPFS, guaranteed immutability, a first in scientific record-keeping. Data Release Summary. December 4, 2025, 3I/Atlas Orbit Epoch. November 29, 2025, midnight UTC. Non-gravitational acceleration. 0.0019 plus or minus 0.0003 meters per square second. CO2, H2O ratio, 7.8 to 1 plus or minus 1.2. Polarization double peak, 17 degrees, 29 degrees. Brightness fade, delta M equals plus 2.1 within 18 minutes. November 29. Outbound velocity, 31.2 kilometers per second relative to solar barycenter. Each value told a fragment of the story. None told it entirely. 3. The global reaction. Media headlines. Within hours, global outlets published their interpretations. NASA releases full 3I/Atlas data. Natural but mysterious, The Guardian. Acceleration confirmed, explanation pending. New York Times. Europe demands permanent open data policy after Atlas transparency win. Der Spiegel. Comet, probe, or mirror? Humanity still unsure. Reuters special report. The coverage was balanced, but the comment sections weren't. Across YouTube, TikTok, and Reddit, the story transformed again. Now framed not as the anomaly that divided us, but as the secret we almost lost. Social rebirth. Hashtags returned. Hashtag Atlas Files. Hashtag Open Space. Hashtag When We Looked Up. Some users built AI narrators that read real scientific data aloud, overlaying them with cosmic imagery. Others created ambient data music, converting telemetry to sound. One viral video simply displayed the final trajectory plot while a soft voice whispered, "If it was alive, it was patient." For the first time in months, all replaced outrage. 4. The political closure. United Nations resolution. On December 9th, the United Nations Committee on Outer Space Affairs, COPUOS, reconvened. This time, the tone was different, procedural, sober, almost humble. Resolution UNCOS/2025/14, adopted by majority vote, stated, The committee acknowledges the scientific and social significance of the 3I/Atlas event. It affirms that data of global relevance, even if collected under national or corporate infrastructure, constitutes a shared heritage of humanity. Member states are encouraged to establish joint data custody frameworks. The clause "shared heritage of humanity" triggered quiet applause in the hall. Diplomats who had argued weeks earlier now shared nods across the table. It was the closest humanity had come to a treaty of epistemology, a recognition that knowledge itself required defense. The U.S.EU Science Accord. 2 days later, Washington and Brussels signed the Open Cosmos Agreement, committing to mirror all future deep space observation data within multiple jurisdictions. The document was short but historic. This final sentence read, "No single cloud shall own the sky." 5. Independent analyses and think tank reports. The Astrophysical Consortium Review. By mid-December, over 40 institutions submitted independent analyses of the raw 3I/Atlas data. Findings converged on several key points. Acceleration decrease. Magnitude declined after November 29th, consistent with residual venting. No radio emissions. Deep searches via the Allen Telescope Array detected no coherent signals. Thermal consistency. Object cooling rate matched predictions for metallic rock composite, possibly dense and compact. Trajectory confirmation. Now hyperbolic escape vector confirmed, leaving the solar system at -31 km/s. A joint abstract published in Nature Astronomy concluded, 3I/Atlas presents mixed evidence for both cometary and inert material behavior. Its motion remains partially unexplained but plausibly natural. Extraordinary claims remain unsupported by extraordinary data. The phrasing was diplomatic, but the undertone lingered. Mystery survived peer review. Global Security Institute follow-up report. The GSI released its final white paper on December 15th, titled Cognitive Resilience in the Post-Atlas Era. The true legacy of 3I/Atlas is not astrophysical. It is sociological. The first global rehearsal of an information singularity, when uncertainty travels faster than truth. Recommendations. Treat scientific anomalies as public interest events, not security liabilities. Create a rapid verification core combining data scientists, ethicists, and communication specialists. Develop AI fact validation pipelines for real-time transparency. Center for Space Ethics. Final memo. The CSE issued a shorter, poetic statement. If the object was natural, it reminded us that not every mystery is meant to be solved. If it was artificial, it reminded us we were seen. Either way, humility is now a scientific instrument. 6. The Hidden Annex, Classified Findings. Despite official transparency, whispers persisted about a classified annex within NASA and ESA archives. A December 12th leak, allegedly from an internal review board, claimed the annex contained high-resolution infrared frames showing momentary geometric shadowing inconsistent with random tumbling. The leaked text read, "Frame 147 to 152 display brightness occlusions consistent with flat surface rotation. Orientation stable over 3 cycles. Possibility of structured geometry not excluded." Neither NASA nor ESA confirmed or denied the annex's existence. In an internal memo later published via FOIA, even if true, geometry does not equal intent. Still, the phrase spread like wildfire across forums and documentaries. Geometry does not equal intent. It became the mantra of those who sought balance between skepticism and wonder. 7. The cultural resonance. Literature, art, and memory. Within weeks, 3I/Atlas transcended science. Writers, musicians, and filmmakers turned the event into metaphor. A short story titled "The Visitor Who Never Spoke" won the Hugo Award the following year. A sculpture in Berlin, 2 intersecting metal arcs titled Delta V, commemorated the motion without motive. In Tokyo, projection artists displayed a holographic trace of the object's orbit across the Shinjuku skyline every night at 3:11, the time of the original AWS outage. Art became continuation. Science had closed its instruments. Culture kept watching. Social evolution. The incident reshaped how people perceive technology and trust. After months of disinformation chaos, many online communities adopted evidence badges, tags linking every claim to its primary dataset. By 2026, several social platforms integrated proof layer protocols, inspired by the open astronomy model. For a moment, humanity's fractured infosphere seemed to learn from its own failure. 8. The scientist's epilogues. Dr. Lien Chen returned to her post at JWST Operations. Chun continued studying cometary thermal models. She declined every interview, but one brief quote survived from a December 20th profile. When we stopped asking whether it was a probe and started asking what it taught us about our limits, that's when science resumed. Dr. Rajesh Narang, now leading the Open Dynamics Initiative, Narang pushed for open access simulators so future anomalies wouldn't vanish into proprietary software. His unofficial motto, Model in Daylight. Dr. Tara McConnell took a sabbatical. She wrote a personal essay for Scientific American titled Error Bars and Faith. Between the numbers, there was awe. Between the equations, there was fear. The distance between those two is what we call science. Paolo Rizzi. At ESA, he refused to sign the Natural Explanation Summary. His colleagues called him the romantic. His last recorded note in the project archive reads, "If it was a probe, it came not to speak but to measure us, and it succeeded." 9. The object's final path. By December 23, 2025, 3I/Atlas had crossed $2.30 from the Sun, outbound toward interstellar space. Its apparent magnitude dropped below 22. Only the largest telescopes could still track it. The final observation came from the Very Large Telescope, Chile, on December 24th. OBS log, VLT, December 24th, 2025 03:42Z. Flux, 0.0023 plus or minus 0.0004 MJY. Spectral lines, none above noise. Acceleration, below measurable threshold. Status, fading. The last official comment in the data record simply reads, "Observation terminated." But in amateur forums, the chase never ended. Citizen astronomers used stacked exposures to follow the fading point weeks longer, until noise consumed light. On January 6, 2026, one user posted, "I think I saw it blink one last time, or maybe that was just my camera's pixel dying." That comment received 12,000 likes. The search, by then, had become religion. 10. Global lessons and scientific reforms. The 3I/Atlas episode led to systemic changes in how humanity prepares for anomalies. Reforms in science. Distributed verification. Data from major observatories now auto-mirrored across continents. AI accountability. Any model generating public claims must include explainable outputs. Rapid peer review cells. 72-hour review cycles for high-impact anomalies, balancing speed and rigor. Ethical oversight boards. New cross-disciplinary teams ensure communication responsibility during uncertainty. Reforms in infrastructure. Multi-cloud architecture mandate. No single cloud region can host global critical data. Transparency triggers. Automatic publication of anonymized telemetry during large-scale outages. Cyber astronomy integration units. Joint training of engineers and astrophysicists in systems correlation. The blueprint came to be known as the Atlas Protocol, not named for the telescope that found the object, but for the idea that knowledge itself must be held on many shoulders. 11. Reflections and theories. As months passed, interpretations settled into three enduring schools. 1. The naturalists. They argue 3I/Atlas was a hyperactive interstellar comet with volatile jets and metal-rich inclusions, its anomalies magnified by observational bias. Their creed: nature is still stranger than we imagine, but still nature. 2. The technologists. They believe it was a dormant or derelict construct, perhaps solar sail debris or autonomous probe from another system. They cite phase-locked accelerations and geometric reflections. Their creed: absence of proof is not proof of absence. 3. The philosophers: they see it as a mirror, not an object, reflecting the state of human cognition in 2025. To them, the true event was not in the sky but in the collective mind that misread it. Their creed: the first contact happened between our data and our doubt. Each group still meets annually under the same conference title, Interstellar Object Studies, Lessons of Atlas, and each leaves believing the others missed the point. 12. The Last Interview. In February 2026, a BBC documentary recorded one final conversation with Dr. Mai Tanaka, the UN science advisor who once told Congress that people lost 2 kinds of trust in 1 week. She sits before a dim starfield simulation. Interviewer: do you think we'll ever know what it was? Tanaka: knowing isn't the same as understanding. We may never understand. Interviewer: so what was the lesson? Tanaka: that even the most rational species can panic at silence, and that sometimes the universe tests not our intelligence but our patience. She pauses, then adds quietly, the light left us, but the question stayed. 13. The final archive entry. IAA Archive. Record close, February 1st, 2026. Subject: 3I/Atlas. Status: archived. Data integrity verified. Notes: object no longer observable. Project transition complete. Legacy remains active in derivative research and international policy. Below the formal note, someone, identity unknown, left an unlogged line in the metadata comment field. We sent nothing back. Perhaps that was the answer they were measuring. 14. Epilogue: the resonance. The sky after Atlas. A year later, a faint interstellar object entered survey data again. Slower, dimmer, unremarkable. No one panicked. No servers crashed. Outages had redundancy, telescopes had protocols, and social media, at least for a while, had memory. The phrase, when the servers slept and the stars moved, became the title of a documentary that redefined science communication online. Students watched it not for aliens but for ethics, humanity's reflection. The 3I/Atlas event didn't reveal another civilization. It revealed how close ours stands to informational collapse, and how it can still recover. The universe stayed silent, but its silence taught noise discipline. For once, the lesson wasn't cosmic, but civilizational. 15. Open conclusion. Some final entries from across the network. December 2026. Tweet: @Asteroid. A year later, 3I/Atlas is 12 billion kilometers away. We still argue about what it was. That's progress. Reddit r/space ethics. If it was alive, it left quietly. If it wasn't, we invented a heartbeat for it. Log: JWST system note. Next observation target: Kepler 442b. Calibration nominal. And in one quiet paragraph of a United Nations annual report, the event known as 3I/Atlas marked a transition from reaction to reflection. Humanity remains watchful and, for the first time, self-aware of its own blind zones. The last line: when the object left our sky, we didn't lose light. We gained a mirror.